Good morning. I'm Joyce. How you doing?
Well, praise the Lord. We're 2 weeks ago, I finished the lesson on Samuel. Actually ended, but we're going to continue reading. I made an outline. We finished chapter 18 of 1 Samuel, and this week we're going to start 1 Samuel 17. And 1 Samuel 17 is the chapter about David and Goliath. So we're going to start studying a lot more about David as these lessons shift. Okay, so let's go to chapter 17 of 1 Samuel. Goliath defiles Israel. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shokah, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Sokah and Azekah in Ephes Dammim. Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched in the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. The Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of brass upon his head. He was armed with a coat of mail. The weight of the coat of mail was 5,000 shekels of brass. He had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. His spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are you come out to set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine, and you am not I a Philistine, and you are servants of Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and kill me, then we shall be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall he be our servants and serve us. Let me get 2 more verses. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we might fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and were greatly afraid. Okay. Now, if you have your outline, if you want to keep up with me, you can check off the ones I've read. So far I've done Goliath defiles Israel, but we haven't talked about it yet. So, let me set that down. Going back to verse 1, the Philistines gathered their armies together to battle against Judah again. Okay, now you'll find throughout all the scriptures, and even to this day, the Philistines have been fighting the Israelites. Even to this very day, they fight the Israelites. Now, I looked up some of these words. I thought they were interesting. That they were gathered in for a battle. But the first place they went to, it says they gathered at Sokah, S-H-O-C-H-O-H, and it means fenced in. And then it says in between there and Azekah. I wish I could say these words better, but it means tilled. We can say it in English easier. And then Ephes Dammim means boundary of blood drops. Apparently, there's an area kind of like a no man's zone. You know what I mean? This area, and they called it the boundary of blood drops. Because I could just imagine how many battles were fought between these two mountains that we're talking about. Now, one thing I remember when I was a kid. When you was a kid, did kids yell and scream at each other, throw insults at each other? And sometimes they didn't even fight, but one had the worst insults. You know, Goliath reminds me of this guy that tries to insult you until you try to fight him.
Like a bully. Like
a big bully. He's a very, very big bully, in fact. Now, it also says that where's it? Elah, in verse 2, They were in the valley of Elah, and that word means strong tree. And this is 15 miles from Bethlehem. So you imagine that these armies are encamped about 15 miles from their main city. So you have to understand that they were going to attack and take over Israel, but they were doing it in a way that was a form of battle. Now you'll notice all through history, battles change. You know, a lot of times in the battles of the olden days, you get the chariots all together and the horses and the footmen, and they would just run at each other. You know what I'm saying? They would fight in a form like that. They wouldn't fight like we do today, where you hide most of the time. But that's true, right? Okay, now this man Goliath, his name means exile. Okay? And there's some important things. It says he was a champion. Now that word champion, there's nothing special about the word champion there. The word in Hebrew is ish. And the word ish can be used for a lot of things. Man, servant. In other words, he's a servant of the Philistines, or he's the chosen servant of the Philistines. The word champion's nice because we always associate it with some gigantic guy that's a champion, but the word actually means a man. So that's another thing. It means a man, ish. The word ish means man. Now one thing I wanted to bring out in that is that some things on TV, in fact I was watching it this week. Anybody watch the History Station? I watched the History Station. They were saying that Goliath was an ancient alien. You know? You know what I'm saying? And there's kids that would believe that, but we know right here, especially if you look at the word champion, he was just a man. A very large man. You know, if you start reading this, a cubit says he was 6 cubits and a span. A cubit's about 18 inches long, and a span is 9 inches. So that makes him about... There's been a lot of arguments about how big he was, but Dake says he's 13 foot 4 inches, and that's pretty tall. Okay? Yeah. Dake said that. And he used this formula as 18 inches being a cubit, and a span being 9 inches.
That's a strong man.
That's a very, very long, gigantic man. Could you imagine? A 6 foot tall man to me is tall. Yeah. You know, when Brother Hammett walks in here, I go,
oh, I know.
Oh, my. That's a big man.
Yeah, it is a big man. You're right.
He had to be strong, too, because his armor was weighing around 200 pounds.
Oh, at least. Now, we'll start talking about that in just a second. Now, one of the things I also want to talk about is 6, the number of 6. Now, what is the number 6? Is there something special about that number?
The number of man.
It is the number of man. It is also the number of beast. Right? Revelation 13:18 is the number of the beast. Now, another thing it represents Satan. I'm going to tell you right now, number 6 represents Satan. In 2 Samuel 21:20, you find another race of giants in 2 Samuel. So this is not Goliath, this is somebody else. 2 Samuel 21:20 says there's a man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes. Yep. And he's a giant also. So we see giants in the Bible, and they are men. Don't be confused when people stop talking about angels walking this earth. God got rid of those in the flood if they were here. So now it said he had a brass helmet. Now the word brass is nehoshet, which means copper brazen. It's an alloy. And the word helmet is koba, and it means a rounded helmet. Now, he had on a coat of mail, and the word coat of mail is one word in Hebrew. It's shiryon, Shiryon, and the word actually means twisted. Okay, now I know I've looked up some things about medieval armor, and then prior to that, they had coats of mail. They would weave metal into cloth, okay, so they'd be resistant to swords and arrows. In verse 6, it said he had on sheaves. Well, no, not verse 6. Yeah, verse 5. Okay, now I missed something here. 5,000 shekels of brass. 1 shekel weighs about an ounce, so 5,000 ounces. I don't know how much that is.
According to my index here, it says weigh 125 pounds.
125 pounds. How'd you like to wear a shirt that weighs 125 pounds? You know?
You know what I really want to say? That's about as much as almost as much as I weigh. We know that's not true. I'm sorry. Just couldn't help myself.
We didn't say anything.
Pretty close, sister.
You said almost.
Pretty close.
I'm prophesying. I'm prophesying.
You're believing.
Sorry. My bad.
Okay. The next thing he has is a target of brass. Now, what it is, and I think that I've seen some pictures of it, which I didn't make any. I got a video I might show later on if I get a chance. Might be next week. But he had a small target. Now, that's what that is a small shield. He has a small shield and a very, very large spear. Now, this spear, it says it's like a weaver's beam. Now, does anybody know what a weaver's beam is?
The only thing I can think of is like a loom.
It is a loom. Now, if you've ever been to a factory that makes clothing, or somebody or if you've ever seen one, these things would the weaver's beam would be about the size of that bench right there. Okay, so his spear is about the size of that bench.
Wow.
Okay. And what it was, it's the middle portion where you put the string through and you keep throwing the thing down onto the beam, and the beam creates the clothing. So that's how big that was. And the spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron, just the head of it. And then there was one that would go out before him with a. Now, how would you like to be the little guy in front of the guy holding the big shield? No, but that's true. They said this little guy out in front of him going like this with a shield in front of him in case. Why they do that is because they'll shower him with arrows. So you got the little guy with a shield and then the big guy behind, right? That's how it works. You got this little guy. He's called a pawn. If you ever play chess, that's the one that you sacrifice, right?
Yes.
So you don't want to be the guy carrying the devil's shield, right? Now, this was a large shield. Okay, the little guy's carrying the larger shield. Now, in verse 8, they were set in array. There's two different words there. Milhama means they were in a battle war engagement, and then they were arrayed. The word there is Arak, A-R-A-K, not like Iraq, but they were put in order. In other words, they were set up for battle, right? And they said, okay, we've got our man we've chosen, our Ish, our champion. So you've got to choose your champion, and if I kill your champion, you're our slaves, and if you kill our champion, which is Goliath, we'll be your slaves. Okay? Now, it says here in verse 10, let's go to verse 10. It says, I defy the armies of Israel. The enemy always comes to defy God.
That's right.
He comes to defy His word. That word defy is harap, and it means to root, to expose, to rail, or reproach. In other words, to speak about the word of God as if it's light, I should say. Okay, that they've come to defy God's word, and verse 11 shows you that they were afraid of the enemy. Interesting, though, that they should even be afraid of the enemy. They got their king, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we just read 2 weeks ago.
We see how good he was.
Yeah, he got 1,000, and David got his 10,000s. Right? That's coming up. That's coming up later on. Okay. Now let's go to number 2 on our list. David's mission says. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons, and the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to battle, and the names of his 3 sons that went out into battle were Eliab, the firstborn. The next to him was Abinadab, and the third was Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the three followed Saul, and David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And I think I'll stop there for right now, verse 15. Now, David. Anybody know what David's name means?
I did it, but I don't.
It means loving.
Oh.
David means loving. I got a son-in-law named Dave. And I love him.
Aw.
Okay.
I love my daughter one too. I love my son too.
And Bethlehem, Judah. I would like to be from Bethlehem, Judah. That's house of bread and praise. Wonderful. Jesse's name means to exist. Now, I had a little controversy in reading verse 12 where it says, it talks about David, and then it goes on to say that he's the son of the Ephraimite. And then it says he had 8 sons, and a man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And I read 2 different commentaries about talking about who this old man was. Some of them said it was David. What do you think? Do you think that David walked around as an old man, or do you think it's talking about his dad, Jesse?
I think he's talking about his dad.
That's what I thought. Dake says it's not. He says it's David's maturity, but I don't think so. I think it's talking about his dad. Sometimes Dake's is wrong.
Well, because he said, and he had 8 sons. I mean, Jesse's the one that had 8 sons.
Yeah, I think it's talking about Jesse there. Okay, now he had 3 sons, right? I mean, he had more than 3. He had, but 3 that went to battle with Saul. And their name were Eliab, which means God of his father. Abinadab means father, generosity. And Shammah was the one that had 2 different meanings, which one meant wrestle or waste, and the other one meant a wonderful thing. And that's how I like his name, because sometimes children can be that way. You know? They can. They can
Yes,
be a wonderful thing, or they can be a horrible thing, you know? Depending on, you know, what in the diaper you're on, right?
Situation, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now, David was young, and David did not follow Saul. Did you notice that?
Yep.
Also, David was a shepherd. He was not a warrior, so he went and did what his daddy told him to do. Right? His daddy told him to go take care of the flocks. That's what he did. Okay, that brings us to verse 16. And the Philistines drew near morning and evening and presented themselves 40 days. Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. And carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning, and he left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. Okay. Now, can you imagine they bragged for 40 days? But then it says that they were fighting. Apparently they started fighting. Nobody would fight Goliath though yet, right? So there was some fighting going on, it says. David was sent with provisions for his brothers, right? The corn, bread, and cheese. And now, David rose up before daybreak. But you notice on verse 20, he made sure that his sheep were taken care of before he left them. I remember Jesus said something about that too.
Take care of my sheep before you die.
Yeah, he says 99. I'll go after the one. The 99 are safe. I'll go after the one. And now, David was obedient to his father. Now, can you imagine that they had gathered on these 2 mountaintops, and they were all yelling and screaming at each other?
I know.
Yeah, that's basically.
I'm glad I don't have to go to war. I know James has been in battle situations. It's probably not that much fun, huh? Not really.
Well, I mean, any part of it. Just going to boot camp, getting away from your family, like, people telling you, I mean, the whole thing is just not a good thing. I mean, I appreciate it.
Yes, people are called to do it. I mean, it's being in the military. And I was raised in a military family, so I understand that.
Right.
And sometimes the government tells you have to go. You know?
That's true. I remember that time too. But, you know.
Okay, let's go to verse 22, part number 3 on our list. I'm going pretty quick. David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage and ran into the army and came and saluted his brethren. And he talked with them. Behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. All the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have you seen this man that has come up? Surely to defy the Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with riches, and give him his daughter, and make him his father's house free of Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, and saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth the Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that should he defy the armies of the living God? The people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that killeth him. We'll stop there. Okay, I had to look up another word. Verse 22, I did not know what a carriage was, other than a thing that horses pull behind them, but that's not what this is. The word carriage here in Hebrew is keli, and it means the stuff. Tools, weapons, whatever. It can mean whatever. It's a bag full of whatever, right? You know what I'm saying?
Like a... It's
a bag, yeah. It's like it is a shepherd's bag. And it says that he saluted his brethren. And I was thinking this word would have been shalom, but it's not. This word was she'al, which means inquire or request. He come and he asked about his brothers, okay? And then David got to hear about Goliath's lip, right?
Right.
Verse 24. What a bunch of chickens. Where are their faith? Run away, right? Run away. It's a big, big man with a big sword and a big weaver's beam spear. Really, he doesn't look that big when you think about it. I mean, when you think about the angels of God.
You know, that's funny because I was going back to, it's like, how far were they departed from seeing all the miracles of the Lord?
They were so far away. They were afraid of a little man. I mean, really, you think about it. They come up against the armies of the Egyptians, the chariots, Pharaoh. I mean, those powerful men on earth. They whooped them. They had to run away, but they still whooped them. Yeah. God whooped them.
Yeah, I mean,
God whooped them.
Swallowed them up.
And they didn't have to do anything except call on the living God.
Right.
You know, and here they are running away like a bunch of chickens.
They forgot about the
They
Red
forgot.
Sea.
Exactly.
And
we do that too, though.
It is fearful, though, sometimes we face our enemies facing the enemy. It's tough sometimes. You know, but it's time to cry out to God when you are afraid.
Amen.
I mean, I can't say I'm never afraid. I'm afraid quite often. Is it right? No. But it is time to call on God when you feel that feeling. And then David asked them why they're afraid. And they say, You ask us why we're afraid? Have you seen that guy? Have you seen him? And did you hear his language? He has a bad language. And also, did you hear what was going to be offered if we defeat him? That's a great thing. I mean, but who's going to defeat this guy? And David says, well, somebody needs to get him, and somebody needs to take away this reproach that's coming against God. And sometimes that's what happens. I believe that in some wars, people begin to pray.
Amen.
And the evil subsides.
Amen.
It takes lives.
That's right.
It does.
It does.
Look at World War II. I don't think the world would have been very good if Hitler had gotten the atomic bomb and send it somewhere.
No.
Bad enough us getting it
Yeah.
and sending it somewhere. All right, I'm going to come back. A few seconds, a few minutes. Okay, now, I like the way he says this too in verse 26. Who is this uncircumcised barbarian? Right?
Right?
Who is he? That he should come against the armies of the living God.
That's right.
You notice David didn't say he's coming up against Israel or the armies that are in array here. He said he's coming up against the armies of the living God. How's he going to win against those armies?
That's right.
David's seen these armies. These people, these chickens didn't. These hard-hearted, callous people that were religious at one time and had lost their faith. You know, they didn't not want to stand up against them. David saw supernatural armies. Right.
Real quick, Brother Keith. I have trouble with this, and Mary does too, and I have to remind her. We should all remember this. When a lot of times we take it personal, and I know this is a war and it's kind of different, but we take it personal when people don't like us. But the reality in the spiritual sense is what's in them don't like what's in us.
Absolutely.
That's true.
And you know, we don't you know, Brother McDonald made a good statement from this pulpit. He said we don't really have to worry about what's going on in the Middle East. We got to be worried about what's going on right here. You know, like he said. You know, like he said, the here's the battlefront. Yes.
I got to make a public correction. Mary doesn't have a problem with that, but I do.
I'm glad you're submissive to your wife. Just no, but I do have something to say on this. But you know what? At that time, you've got to also realize. I know this is the sad part about it, and this is why we understand how important the Holy Spirit is with us now. Is because at this time they were still counting on judges. They were still counting on a man of God. You know, they didn't have. No one decided to choose to have a relationship with the living God. David did. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's the big difference. Yeah, you can talk to anyone, and it's like if they don't have a true relationship with the Lord, they get a bad report from the doctor. All of a sudden, their world is shattered, or something's going on, and they're looking for that man of God.
Yeah.
But you know, the good thing about it is we know is like we go straight to the Father, and yes, we call our friends to help us pray. But then at the same time, you know, we know it. You know, and that's what's going on here too.
Yeah, and you know, here the leader had done something to where the Spirit of God had left him. And
that's true.
Earlier we had read that the servants recognized that the Spirit of God was on him. Don't you think these people realized the Spirit of God had left him?
Amen.
All of a sudden my leader has no power anymore.
That's right.
Why isn't he out there fighting Goliath? He's big.
Amen.
Not 14 foot tall, but maybe 6, 7, maybe. Big man. He was a big man. Saul was bigger than all his fellows.
That's right.
So, and if you ever met Jewish people, they're pretty small.
Well, Saul looked the part and David didn't.
Right.
This is true.
Exactly. And power comes, well, David knew how to tap into the real power.
Amen.
I mean, like I say, he's seen supernatural armies that this big oaf was coming against. He didn't see the little chickens that were running away.
That's right.
He's seen a mighty army that this man's coming against, and he's saying, who is he that he can come against God and his armies? Okay, well, we're going to have to stop there. So we made it to number 3. We finished number 3. We're going to start number 4 next week, sibling rivalry. All right.